couple of notes from things that happened today. I think everybody knows Cade Keith was the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Week. He was the Mountain West Freshman of the Week. He's the first Lobo to ever get both in the same week. They've only been doing freshmen since 21. He is the first Lobo tight end to ever get a Player of the Week award, though. That goes back to 1980 when we were in the WAC. Just today, I sent it out just a little bit ago, he was honorable mention for the John Mackey Award Player Tight End of the Week. There were 3 tight ends this week that had 7 catches and 100 yards, but the NC State guy had 2 touchdowns. And the guy at Houston, McKay, had 1. So the NC State guy got it. DJ McKinney was on the honor roll for the Paul Horning Versatile Player Award for scoring in 2 different fashions, and also had a big reception. And I think that was Daniel Hughes got put on the Ray Guy watch list as well. With that, UNLV it's on the Mountain West Network. 1:02 is the official kickoff time. Take it away, Coach.
Yeah, excited about this big game with UNLV. I appreciate them having another day game. Nice noon game. That's really close to my heart there at Pacific time. They pose a lot of challenges. I think they have the best offense in the conference. I think Calandria is a great player. I mean, he even caught my eye early in the year when we played Idaho State and UCLA. After them, I thought he was very good. He's a great athlete. He can extend plays. He's got a very good arm. He's accurate. I think the running back, Jaden Thomas, may be the best back we played all year. I think he's a really physical runner who's got great speed. Jaden Bradley, the receiver, is very good. And then, defensively, I think they have a knack for making big plays. Amaris Brown is a heck of a player. He really stands out to me. It's a conference interceptions. They lead the nation in creating turnovers. So they play timely defense. They're pretty good on third down. They lead the conference on third down. So that just shows you it's yards aren't as important on defense if you can be very timely, and they've been very timely with those stops. I think they've created some big plays on special teams. Blocked a couple punts against Wyoming for touchdowns. So it's going to be a challenge, and we're going to have to play very well. But we're excited for the opportunity.
You touched on another super productive quarterback in Calandria this week and all that. How different is it kind of defending him, or kind of playing to defend him as it was kind of playing to defend Barnes?
I think he's really fast. Faster than Barnes. Barnes was a tough runner. I thought patient things, and could read pullers, but Calandria, if you're gonna spy Calandria for him scrambling, it better not be a D lineman. I don't think D lineman can catch him. He's really, really fast, and you got to be sound on the zone read game because if you take too many steps down or turn your shoulders, he's going to pull it and he's going to be gone. So I think he's very, very fast. That's something that really stands out. Obviously, he's not the huge specimen that Michigan's guy was or UCLA's guy, but this guy's fast and can throw.
Well, what they do in the run game and how explosive they can be and all that, how do they kind of put defenses in a bind from what you're kind of seeing?
I think they're sound. I think they're physical. I think their O-line does a good job of blocking downhill. They run the ball well. I believe they're just outside the top 10 in yards per carry in the country. So I think it starts there with the physicality, but then you incorporate just really good skill players all the way around. Some of the other receivers don't have quite the numbers, but you watch them on the routes and they can move. They have guys who can run. I think it's a very talented team for sure.
How do you make sure this game doesn't get issued out?
I think you have to win games however they evolve, and I do think you look at their one loss that they had, they still scored 31 points. So I don't think you can always bank on winning the game like that. I mean, if last week I thought we may have to score more than obviously we held up to 14, which is a heck of a job by our defense. But their worst scoring output of the year is 30 points. So I think it's tough to say, all right, we're going to try to win this game 14-10. We got to make sure we're scoring on offense, and we certainly can't be far behind the turnover margin because again that's something that they've done very well. Being plus 10 on the year. Turnover margin.
So I know you've talked in the past about your philosophy on punting and all this stuff. So Daniel Hughes obviously doesn't get a lot of opportunities, but it seems like last game especially, he made the most of them. Can you just talk about what he's really brought to your team?
Yeah, he did a tremendous job. That was really the first time all year that we had punted in a pin situation where you're trying to pin them deep, because we punt the ball a little differently in that situation. The guys cover a little differently in that situation, and I thought we executed that very well. We had them, fair catch one at about the 4-yard line, and then we pinned one at the 1. So I think he's doing a very nice job. He has one that he could fix. He had one that he was supposed to kick to the right, kind of kicked across his body, and that ended up being a touchback. So our net was not as good on that one. But overall, I think he's doing a really nice job.
You had two common ground coverage points. I guess you saw the tape as you started early that you watched. Did they look much different offensively?
No, I'd say just a general evolution. Obviously, you always tweak a little bit, but it's much more the same. They've been fairly consistent what they're doing. Defensively, I'd say they tweaked a few things based on what people were doing to them, just how they're setting the fronts and things like that. But they're doing a good job. 30's another guy, Dele. I think he's really a good D lineman too. They're doing a good job lining up.
He's really cool looking at it. It's one of the guy watches. Do you think he has any kind of
Bet he does. I'll ask him. That's a good question. He's still learning a lot of things. I'm sure he'd like to find out so we can kind of turn it into some content for a Instagram video.
Coach, watching the Boise game, was that game as lopsided? Is it saying that even though they still scored 31, they lost 56-31?
No, it kind of got away from them. I think they still played pretty well offensively. I mean, they ran the ball pretty good. I can't remember the exact number how they ran it, but they ran it pretty good in that game. They certainly had some chances, and it just got away from them. In some ways, it was like our game against Boise. It was close for a long time, and then they kind of pulled away on us. So, again, I don't look too much into that result. Again, I think what's impressed me about this team is I think they have some toughness and some grit, because they could have lost the Idaho State game and found a way to win. They were down in the fourth quarter. They were down a lot in the Miami game on the road, found a way to win, and in the Air Force game they had to come back and win. So they've had 3 games where they've had to come back and find a way to win. Some credit to them. They've been able to do that.
Coach, I think most people that thought you'd be sitting here with 5 wins this time of the season, probably on that side of the podium. So we all talk about new coaching staff, 72 new players, but is it more of a level playing field because a lot of coaching staffs have to do that? Even ones that come back still have a lot of turnover with players?
Yeah, I don't think there's. I think the days of a Group of 5 program where you're going to have 18 starters returning just isn't probably realistic going forward. I do think the current landscape of college football makes it easier to turn around programs than it would have been before the transfer portal. Back when you had limits, we used to have 25 initial scholarships you could sign a year. And there's good to that. I mean, obviously, the bad part of that is I think everybody who hires a new coach thinks they should be like Signetti in Indiana and take the team to the playoff, even though they've been lousy for a long time, and probably why so many guys have gotten fired already this season. But I do think it's easier to turn around a program than it used to be because of that. UNLV had a ton of turnover with their coaching change. I mean, I think they were. We were in that Field Full Steel magazine. I think they were the one team in the conference who maybe had less returning production than we had. I think we were 11th and they were 12th.
Coach, UNLV, I mean, Dan Mullen, Gunther, I think they have Vontez Burfitt even on their staff. They have 4 one-score victories. What have you seen from them that kind of defines the kind of grind that they have?
Well, I think that's good coaching. If you win a lot of close games, I think that's good coaching in situational football. Obviously, Coach Mullen has done a great job. I followed him for a long time. I actually met him for the first time when we were both graduate assistants. He was a graduate assistant at Notre Dame when I was at Wisconsin. But did a great job for a long time with Urban Meyer as a coordinator, and then Mississippi State. It was not one of the easiest jobs to run at in the SEC, and did a great job there. And then did a good job in Florida. Gets fired, but Florida really hasn't been better since he left. So I think he's a very good coach. And then Gunther's had an NFL background, and I think you really see that in his film. It's a lot of single high. They're pretty standard on first and second down, and third down it's like load your hat every blitz known to man, and they'll walk everybody up on the line of scrimmage, which is I think what you see when you watch a lot of NFL film, where it's pretty simple on first and second down, and complex in third down.
And Calandria, when I was looking at PFF and like the depth of his passes and stuff, he was really he's really successful in between the numbers. What does that kind of say of the thrower that he is, the kind of arm that he possesses?
I think he has a good arm. I think he has a solid arm. I think we got to make sure we're defending the whole field, because again, you can't just because a guy's completed a lot over the middle doesn't mean a lot of times your passing game is based on progressions and what's open. So it doesn't mean you can just sit in the middle, because then we'll probably throw more to the sideline if we flag up the middle completely.
I just so you guys haven't talked about the transfers. Fewest returning players, UNM's number 1 in the nation. Utah State was 2. UNLV is tied for 3 for fewest returning players. Most 4-year transfers, we had the second most. This year, UNLV is the third most. Total transfers, we were 4th, and UNLV was 3rd. So that's where the transfer comes from.
Yeah.
I think Silman came out for a play or two on Saturday and all that. I think he played pretty much the entirety of the game. I know you had said you thought he was kind of like one of your best 5 offensive linemen, heading into the season and all that. Is he kind of starting to kind of lock up with that top 5?
I think he's playing well. He had an ankle injury earlier in the season that he's tough. Didn't always keep him out of practice, but sometimes he practiced and just didn't look very good. And I think that's gotten better. And even today, I feel like it's almost like his normal state is kind of looking around. So I think he's done a good job. I think hopefully we'll get Richard Pierce back this week. I think he's going to try to go today. We'll see what he can do. I think he'd factor in the rotation as well. I think Jamar continues to grow and play well. Cam Robinette played really well. He was our player of the game. And then, I think we'll still continue to use some of those extra lineman formations. We had a few plays where we put Silliman back at fullback, tight end last week, and used him in the blocking game. So he's doing a good job.
Jamar looked like he left or something. Is he going to be good to go?
He got a little nicked up as well, but I think he'll be good. We're expecting him to practice today. Fine.
Coach, I'm sure you're aware that there's a bowl representative sitting in the back of the room right now watching this press conference, and there's probably not a lot of Group of 5 teams that have that advantage, but you're 1 win away from getting to that point, which I'm sure surprises a lot of people, including your fans. Does it surprise you that this thing has come together this quickly?
I told Jeff all along to hold that spot for us. I told him he had his boss in for a golf outing. I don't know, was that this summer or last spring? I told his boss that I know that we'd like to have him in a bowl game. So no, I expected to be in a bowl game. Did I know we'd be in a position to potentially clinch it this early in the season? No, but we got a tough task now. We're playing a very, very good team, and we kind of learned our last 2 times on the road when we played against the team who were picked first and third that we weren't good enough. So we got to find out if we've gotten better and how much we've improved, because now we're going to play the team who's second place in the conference and was picked second. So it's a good opportunity, though. Again, I did think the bowl game was a very realistic goal for a first year.
And a little bit more historical stuff. It's been since 1958 that a first-year coach had a winning record at this school. What does that mean to you if you can actually get to that point?
I didn't know that stat, but I'm glad they didn't tell me that in the interview. But maybe I wouldn't have thought we could go to a bowl game the first year. But hey, we got work to do, and like I said, 6 wins doesn't even. I've always said 6-6 going to a bowl game and losing the bowl game doesn't get you a winning record. So we got a lot of work to do. We need 2 more wins to ensure a winning record. So I don't even want to think about that yet.
Yeah, Mark Levy.
But I do want to think about getting to a bowl game and getting 1 more win, certainly.
Coach, the tight ends, Dorian Thomas already is a superstar throughout the country. Kate Keith came into his own. Mop has been one of the best blockers on the team. Can you just talk about the tight end room that you guys have and possess here at UNM?
I think they're doing a good job. I mean, that was a room that we had to completely make over. And there wasn't many positions that were like that on the team. Most positions we retained some guys. We go to D-line, we still have Lopez and Kiki. O-line still have Pearson, Malik. Quarterback still had Lobstein, but that was one of those positions where everybody in the tight end room is new. And I think those guys have done a good job. I think Dorian has kind of been the lead dog in there. played very well in the passing game. I think he's improving as a blocker. I think Mappa has been a guy we've really counted on to make a lot of tough blocks, and he's got to continue to get better in those situations. Obviously, I think this was a big step up. His last college game was in junior college, which is a big step up to come to FBS football. But he's made some timely catches off play action, and then Cade really showed a knack as a receiver in the spring. He's got to continue to grow with his physicality, grow with getting stronger and bigger. But this game really opened it up where he had a lot of opportunities and he took advantage of them. And I thought there were some really good schematics by Coach Slice. I mean, two of his catches that he probably got 60 yards on, he was basically wide open because of the scheme. I thought we had a really nice play that we set up to take advantage of their coverage look and get them wide open. So encouraged by that room, and I think our offense that Coach Slice and I have kind of put together over this last 10 years is at its best when tight ends are heavily involved.
And on the New Mexico high school football scale right now, this week is going to be, I mean, it's a nationally recognized rivalry, probably the biggest one in New Mexico, Cleveland versus Rio Rancho. Are you going to be watching the live stream? Are you going to be just checking out to see how it goes or how the environment is?
I think Coach check out that game. It's a big game, and we want to do a good job. I think there may be a couple of opportunities. We're limited in how much we can recruit during the season. I believe we get 33 days during the fall where we can send a coach to a game. And like if you send 2 coaches to a game, it counts as 2 of those days. So I do think we're going to get around and see some guys because there's a lot of good prospects in the state, and we'll make sure we're evaluating all those guys and getting the best guys from the state to play here.
My daughter graduated from Cleveland, but I can't say who I want to.
Brawley, coming back to practice, what's kind of the timeline plan for him going forward?
Yeah, he's theoretically cleared. He's doing a little procedure on his back has bothered him at times, so I think he did like a little procedure on his back, so I think he's going to practice today. But we plan to have him back after the bye week. I think our plan all along was we wanted to preserve his redshirt year and keep him playing in only 4 games or less. So with him playing the Michigan game, we can expect him to return and play these last 3 games, which would keep him at 4 games and allow him to come back next year.
And bowl game does not count. So
Bowl game, conference championship games do not count towards it.
The Division I Administrative Committee moved to it earlier in the month, but I think D2 and D3 just shorted up like last week or whatever. All removed the ban on college athletes betting on professional sports and all that. How are you treating that with your team? And have you talked with them? And what are kind of your thoughts?
I'm going to talk with him. I think it goes into fruition on Saturday, and ironically we're in Las Vegas the day it goes to fruition. I know the SEC, the SEC, I think came out with a letter that they don't like the change. They think that's a bad change. I'm going to talk with the team about it, address it. And I think my message is you got to be careful, because a lot of these guys are in their first year. The freshmen are still in the dorms, but you start getting the guys who are on scholarship their second year. Now they're getting a monthly stipend. They got to pay their rent with and things. And you got to make sure you're not losing the money to pay your rent. And I'd also caution guys, you got to be careful. Like if you, and I think hopefully this will speak to them. If you're a guy who hopes to play in the NFL, I'd be very careful doing it, because then if you go to play in the NFL, you're not going to be betting on these games, and you don't want to get kind of hooked on it, and then now that's a problem that could affect you, playing professionally in a couple of years. You see some stuff that came out this week in the NBA where I think the prevalence of gambling, is causing some unforeseen consequences with players and things. So I think they got to definitely be careful just with anything. It's, almost the same night of alcohol or drugs. It's legal for 21 to buy marijuana in this state, but I don't think that's a great thing for our players to do for their production. And likewise, I think you can be moderate about it and make $10 bet here and there, and it doesn't affect your ability to live and things. That's one thing, but I'd be concerned if we get the guys when they come to us and they can't pay their rent because I don't want to parlays or something. So got to learn.
You mentioned a couple things earlier in the presser that kind of relate to the bigger picture that a lot of fans are certainly paying attention to. You're doing really well. It is easier than ever to rebuild the team and all that kind of stuff, but it's hard to retain them. Your name keeps popping up for other jobs. Obviously, it's going to happen even more if you guys keep having success. I'm not going to ask you to predict predict the future on your job, but it's two parts. It's one, schools may come for you, and one, that New Mexico has to try and retain you. Are you happy with what the process here is right now currently to kind of communicate with you and show that there will be more investment next year than there is this year?
Yeah, I mean, I love our athletic director. I think that he was one of the guys that really drew me into this program. I mean, President Stokes has done a great job. I'm probably biased towards both of them because they hired me. I'm obviously very interested to see how the search goes for President Stokes' replacement, making sure that person is pro athletics. But no, I feel our administration has been very responsive, and when there's things that I've told them I think we need to improve, whether it was nutrition to the players or things, I think they've found a way to make things work. So, we love it here. I think it's going to take something amazing to pull us away from here. Again, I don't think it's a negative, because again, most of the programs where you hear their coaches being mentioned is because they're winning. No one who's 2-5 or 2-6 at this point is getting their name mentioned on it. So I think it's a reflection of the work our players are doing, and I think it's very similar for coaches and players right now. You got to stay focused on the task at hand, because we have a lot of players who are getting hit up by agents and stuff who are trying to encourage. My son's one of them who's getting hit up by agents who's want to represent him and telling him how much he can get if he goes into the portal and things like that. And you can't get ahead of yourself. You got to focus on the task at hand and take care of business. And then I do think when the season is over, the regular season's over, you have time to evaluate some of those things. But I'm very happy here, and it takes something pretty amazing to move me away. And that's kind of how I felt about this opportunity. I really liked it in Idaho, and I was coaching my son, and I just thought this was too good an opportunity to pass up to come here. So.
All right, so follow up two things you said there. One, on the presidential search part of it, is that something that you feel you've done well enough to elevate yourself to a position of, hey, keep me in the loop a little bit? I am curious. This plays into my future.
No, I hope. I don't think that's really a big role of mine, but I hope Fernando gets good say that and gets involved. Obviously he's the athletic director who hired me, and he's tied into that. I mean, he took me up to go to Santa Fe one day with him, but he was up in Santa Fe a bunch and stuff. So I think that's more his world, and I hope that he gets some say in that. And in talking with him, I know he told me he hopes to have some involvement in that as well. So I think that's important for us, because I think we're getting our momentum going in the right place. We want to certainly keep going.
You mentioned the Jackson part and the next year. How do you, as UNM's football coach, play balance the also fatherly role of he has to look out, for his future as well? How do you balance that when people are coming at him for other?
Yeah, I think the good thing, I think this is good with all the players. I think this is going to be a real positive, real change. The portal moving to January, I think, really allows you to catch your breath, because the last couple of years where the portal opened in the beginning of December, it was like our season ended on Saturday, and then Sunday you had a line of guys outside your door had already made their mind up. We're talking to you. And even last year, where we were in the playoffs, guys who during the playoffs were telling me they want to go in the portal to go to bigger places. We're trying to manage that way. We're still playing games. So I do think, I'll sit down with all the guys. Obviously it's a little different with your son, because you're looking at him as a coach and as a player. And again, I'd always support Jackson. We told him the same thing when we came here. We weren't going to force him to transfer here or whatever. We wanted him to do what he wanted to do. We said we'd love to have him. But it would be great if he did. Everything if he did. But we'll sit down and talk and make sure it's the best fit for things. Truthfully, I think he's a guy who I would. Before I signed my contract here, Fernando wanted me to sign the contract before the game, but I wanted to talk to him before we made the decision to go. And I was worried a little bit in that Montana State game. We got our ass kicked that I wouldn't be able to sign the contract after the game when we came back. But thankfully they stuck with me, even though we didn't play well in that last game. But that was part of it. I wanted to, I feel like I owe that to him. He's been a good son, good player for us, that I owe him a conversation before I, make any final decisions or signing.
All right, last one, I promise. And this one's just more serious than the rest. Halloween candy, you got any favorites? Are you dressing up with your daughters this year? Do you do any of that? What's your candy corn question? Are you a candy corn?
My wife, that's a lot of questions there. My wife makes, my wife loves Halloween. Loves Halloween. So hopefully one year we'll have a bye week on Halloween, and I'll do a couple of costumes. She has probably like 10 on her hopper of all these couple of costumes she has for us, but you know, we do. She's actually usually she travels with the team with me, but she's gonna wait. She's flying Southwest Airlines Saturday morning because she wanted to trick or treat with the kids and then fly out for the game. She'll come back with us, but so I won't be dressing up with it. You know, it's kind of bad timing for dads this year. I mean, usually if it was a Thursday night or something, that's pretty good timing for Halloween. And yeah, I like a lot of candy. I like Reese's. I like Butterfingers. There's a lot of candies.
He specifically asked candy corn.
My wife makes candy corn with peanuts in the house. Candy corn mixed with peanuts because it kind of gives it that salty sweet. And we even debate like what's the perfect ratio. I'm more of like a 2 peanuts to 1 candy corn. My wife's more like 4 or 5 peanut to 1 candy corn ratio. But that's why I'm team candy corn.
What are the analytics saying?
Don't eat candy corn by themselves because it kind of makes you sick. But with the salty sweet, pretty good.
Follow that up, Sean.
Can't quite follow that up. I am interested though, curious a little bit about like the idea of Jackson being kind of reached out to by like agents and all that. Like, is it an immediate like sharp rebuke or like
any good player is?
Yeah.
You know, Jay Martassi gets named to, you know, anybody can put these lists out. I don't even know who does it, but Jay Martassi got named to some online. You know, these things that, you know, mid-year teams. I don't even know what a mid-year team is. You know, mid-year All-American, mid-year freshman All-American team. And all of a sudden, boom, you know, 20 people hitting the social media, reaching out. You know, that's the way it is now. If you're a good player in the group of 5 or a top FCS school and you're playing well, you get up with all these people. It's basically, it's kind of the American way, I guess. It's a cottage industry that's propped up where they figure, hey, I can find 20% because, you know, players can't, you know, call, but these people who they're not certified, you know, there's nothing that stops them if they can get a coach's number or a recruiting guy's number at a big school and say, hey, this guy's interested in coming there. Where did you get that guy? And then take 20% for being that middleman because players can't talk to you know, teams directly until they're in.
does Jackson just ignore it and just kind of show you and laugh?
He
or?
told me, yeah, he has no response.
Okay. And then kind of the idea, kind of building off what Grammer was talking about a little bit as well too. Like obviously you touched on it as well. Like Signetti has kind of changed the game for a lot of coaches in the sense that quick flip for a lousy team and all that. And it's kind of with the portal for coaches. It used to be kind of a 5-year deal. Now it's kind of 2-3 years. And you're no stranger to kind of moving around and taking different jobs. But how much, it's not the newest thing, but how much has that changed the calculus of how you look at kind of your future and how you look at, you know, just kind of taking jobs?
You know, I don't think it really changes how you look at things, but I do think, you know, we got to win another game. I said it all along, you know, we were 5-7 last year. You don't want to come into a job and have the same record and be worse than you were the year before. You got to show improvement. So I knew, you know, I talked about going to a bowl game. For me, this was a failure of a season if we didn't go to a bowl game. You know, so hopefully we can finish this off and get there and also finish with a winning record, which would be great. But I do think you need to establish some momentum quickly. And, you know, again, I think that's sometimes an advantage. You know, where, you know, to me, I think it's if you can do a good job of evaluating a place that hasn't won, but you think there's some reasons why you can win, which I was able to do, like with this job in New Mexico. I think that's, or Idaho, that's valuable because your expectations are not as high. You know, I think that's a problem. You know, LSU expects you to win a national title within 4 years, where, you know, there's 136 teams. Now I know not all 136 are probably viable candidates, but only one's going to win the title. I mean, that's hard to guarantee that within 4 years you're going to win a title. So I do think I've enjoyed, you know, turning programs around. There's some satisfaction.
You did LSU 4 years? Jeez, that's a long time. If you did LSU 4 years, they're expecting one next year.
Well, the last 3 coaches that won 90 national titles within 4 years. So
let's go. Any UNLV questions? Any other anything? Like, you know, we were playing Saturday, big game Saturday. Anybody? We're good. Okay, show me.
Did you watch the game?
I watched a couple at bats on the way home.